Wars have been fought over it. Empires have risen and fallen because of it. Gandhi marched 240 miles to break a law about it. Roman soldiers were paid with it. That's literally where the word salary comes from. We're talking about something sitting on your kitchen table right now. Something so common, so ordinary, that you probably used it this morning without a second thought. Salt. That white crystal you casually sprinkle on your eggs. It's shaped human history more than gold, more than oil, more than almost any other substance on Earth. Cities were built where it was found. Trade routes spanning continents were created to move it. Entire populations were enslaved to mine it. Today we produce 280 million tons of salt annually. It's in everything. Your food, your water, your roads, your smartphone. It's so abundant that we literally throw it on the ground to melt ice. But for most of human history, salt was more valuable than human life itself. This is the story of how a mineral that makes up 3.5% of our oceans became the most fought-over commodity in history. This is the story of salt, the foundation of civilization. Let's start with a basic truth. You will die without salt. Not metaphorically, literally. Your body contains about 250 grams of salt at any given moment. It's in your blood, regulating your blood pressure. It's in your nerves, transmitting electrical signals that let you think, move, and feel. It's in your muscles, including your heart. Without salt, your body simply shuts down. And here's the problem. You can't make it. You can't synthesize it. You have to consume it. And if you sweat, which humans do more than almost any other animal, you lose it constantly. We need to replace about 500 milligrams of salt every single day just to survive. For our hunter-gatherer ancestors, this was manageable. Fresh meat contains enough salt to sustain life. But around 10,000 BCE, everything changed. Humans discovered agriculture. We started eating primarily plants, grains, vegetables, fruits. And plants? They contain almost no salt. Suddenly, humanity had a crisis. We'd figured out how to grow enough food to support large populations. But that very success created a salt deficiency that threatened survival. The solution to this problem would shape the next 12,000 years of human history. Early humans discovered salt in three places: the ocean, salt springs, and underground deposits left by ancient seas. And wherever they found it, civilizations emerged. In China, around 6,000 BCE, communities formed around salt springs in Sichuan province. They boiled the salty water in ceramic pots until only crystals remained. This wasn't just about survival. It was about preservation. Salt could keep meat edible for months, even years. In a world without refrigeration, this was nothing short of miraculous. The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with salt. They used it for mummification, removing moisture from bodies to preserve them for eternity. They extracted salt from the Nile Delta and from desert deposits. Egyptian workers building the pyramids received salt rations as part of their payment. No salt, no pyramids. In ancient India, salt production became a sophisticated industry. The Rig Veda, one of humanity's oldest texts, mentions salt production techniques. Indian merchants traded salt across Asia, becoming wealthy beyond imagination from what was essentially seasoned rock. But it was the ancient Chinese who truly understood salt's value. By 2000 BCE, China had established a government monopoly on salt production and distribution. Why? Because whoever controlled salt controlled everything. The government could tax it, restrict it, and use it to fund armies and public works. This wasn't just economic policy. This was statecraft at its finest. And that Chinese salt monopoly, it lasted in various forms for over 2,000 years. Think about that. Empires rose and fell, dynasties changed, technologies evolved, but the salt monopoly endured. Salt roads and empires. If you've heard of the Silk Road, you know about one of history's great trade routes. But there was another network just as important, just as vast: the salt roads. These routes crisscrossed continents, moving white gold from production centers to salt-starved populations. And along these routes, cities emerged, prospered, and wielded enormous power. In West Africa, salt caravans crossed the Sahara Desert in journeys that could take months. The city of Timbuktu became one of the world's wealthiest cities because it sat at the intersection of salt routes from the north and gold routes from the south. Merchants traded salt for gold, literally pound for pound. In some regions, salt was more valuable than gold. Think about that for a moment. The stuff we scatter on icy sidewalks was once worth more than gold. The Romans built an empire partly on salt. They constructed the Via Salaria, the Salt Road, one of ancient Rome's most important highways, specifically to transport salt from coastal salt pans to Rome. Roman soldiers received salarium, salt money, as part of their pay. When we say someone is worth their salt or earning a salary, we're speaking Latin about Roman soldiers being paid in preserved food. The Romans also discovered something crucial: salted fish. Garum, a fermented fish sauce made with salt, became ancient Rome's ketchup on everything, wildly popular, and produced in industrial quantities. Factories in Spain and North Africa produced millions of amphorae of garum annually. The Roman economy literally ran on salted fish guts. In Europe during the Middle Ages, salt production became high technology. Venice built its maritime empire partly on salt. The city controlled salt production facilities across the Adriatic and Mediterranean. Venetian merchants became obscenely wealthy, selling salt to the rest of Europe. The Venetian salt monopoly funded the art, architecture, and exploration that would eventually trigger the Renaissance. The Hanseatic League, a confederation of merchant guilds dominating trade in Northern Europe, owed much of its power to salted herring. They developed techniques to salt herring so effectively that it could last for a year. This movable protein allowed ships to undertake long voyages in cities to survive harsh winters. Control of herring fishing grounds and salt supplies meant control of Northern Europe. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, the Wieliczka salt mine in Poland became one of the world's most important salt sources. Operating continuously from the 13th century until 2007, yes, 2007, this mine produced table salt for 700 years. It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site with underground chapels, chandeliers, and even an entire cathedral carved from salt by miners over centuries. Kings taxed salt. Governments regulated it. Smugglers died for it. Because controlling salt meant controlling food preservation, which meant controlling populations. The salt that sparked revolution. Let's talk about how salt toppled governments. France, 1286. King Philip IV established the gabelle, a salt tax. Every French citizen was required to purchase a minimum amount of salt from government distributors at government-set prices. This wasn't just a tax, it was forced consumption, and the prices outrageous. In some regions, salt cost 20 times its production cost. The gabelle became one of the most hated taxes in French history. Smugglers called faux sauniers, or false salt makers, risked death to transport untaxed salt. Punishments were severe: galley slavery, branding, execution. Entire families could be destroyed if caught with illegal salt. By the 1780s, the gabelle was generating about 6% of the French government's revenue. It was also generating enormous resentment. When the French Revolution exploded in 1789, abolishing the gabelle was one of the revolutionaries' first acts. The salt tax had literally helped spark the overthrow of the monarchy. But the most famous salt protest happened in India, 1930. Britain controlled India's salt production. The 1882 Salt Act made it illegal for Indians to collect or sell salt independently. Indians had to buy heavily taxed salt from the British government. This was economic exploitation at its most basic level, taxing a necessity of life. Mohandas Gandhi saw opportunity in this injustice. In March 1930, at age 61, he set out from his ashram with 78 followers on a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea. His goal: to make salt from seawater, breaking British law in the most public way possible. The march took 24 days. Along the route, thousands joined. By the time Gandhi reached the sea at Dandi on April 6, 1930, tens of thousands of people were watching. Gandhi bent down, scooped up a lump of natural salt from the beach, and held it high. With that simple act, he broke the law, and he ignited a movement. Within days, Indians across the country were making and selling salt illegally. The British arrested over 60,000 people, including Gandhi, but the damage was done. The Salt March became a turning point in India's independence movement. The British salt monopoly was broken, and British rule in India would end 17 years later. All because of salt. The science of salt. Here's something fascinating. Salt is the only rock that humans eat. It's a mineral, sodium chloride, or NaCl, formed when sodium and chlorine, two violently reactive elements, combine into a stable crystal. And those crystals, they're almost perfectly cubic at the molecular level. When you look at a grain of salt under a microscope, you're seeing one of nature's most geometrically perfect structures. But salt's importance goes far beyond its structure. It's one of the most chemically versatile substances on Earth. Food preservation works because salt draws water out of food through osmosis. Bacteria and fungi need water to survive. Remove the water, and you remove their ability to grow. This is why salted meat can last for years. Ancient sailors survived months-long voyages on salted pork and salt fish. Without salt preservation, transoceanic exploration would have been impossible. Salt also fundamentally changes how we taste food. It doesn't just make things salty, it suppresses bitterness, enhances sweetness, and amplifies other flavors. Neuroscience has shown that salt activates specific taste receptors on our tongues, but it also affects how we perceive all flavors. Food without salt doesn't just taste less salty, it tastes less like everything. This is why salt appears in virtually every cuisine on Earth. It's not cultural, it's neurological. In the modern era, salt's use has exploded beyond food. Today, only about 6% of salt produced globally goes into food. The rest? Chemical manufacturing consumes about 40% of global salt production. Salt is used to produce chlorine gas, sodium hydroxide, lye, and thousands of other chemicals. Plastics, paper, textiles, soap, glass, all require salt in their production. Water treatment plants use salt to soften water and purify drinking water. In winter, we spread about 24 million tons of salt on roads annually just in the United States alone to melt ice. That's about 137 pounds for every American, every year, just scattered on the ground. Your smartphone? It required salt in its manufacturing. Your clothes? Salt in processing the fabric. Your drinking water? Treated with salt. Modern civilization runs on salt in ways most people never realize. The modern salt world today, we produce more salt than any civilization in history. About 280 million tons annually. That's roughly 77 pounds for every human on Earth. The largest salt producers are China, the United States, and India. But salt is extracted on every continent except Antarctica, using methods ranging from ancient to ultramodern. Solar evaporation remains one of the oldest and most beautiful salt production methods. In places like the San Francisco Bay, southern France, and western India, seawater is channeled into vast, shallow ponds. The sun evaporates the water, and workers harvest the crystallized salt. Some of these salt pans have operated continuously for centuries. Underground mining extracts salt from ancient deposits, dried remnants of seas that existed millions of years ago. Mines can extend thousands of feet underground. The Detroit salt mine, for instance, sits 1,200 feet below Detroit, sprawling across 1,500 acres. It's like an underground city of salt. Solution mining pumps water underground to dissolve salt deposits, then pumps the brine back to the surface for evaporation. This method produces the ultra-pure salt used in chemical manufacturing and food production. But here's the twist. After thousands of years of salt being precious, rare, and expensive, we now have the opposite problem. We have too much salt. The average American consumes about 3,400 milligrams of sodium daily, more than double the recommended amount. This isn't because we're shaking salt shakers with abandon. It's because salt is in everything processed. Bread, cheese, sauces, snacks, frozen meals. Food manufacturers use salt as a cheap flavor enhancer and preservative. This overconsumption has health consequences. High salt intake is linked to hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. The thing that once kept us alive now threatens our health, a strange reversal after millennia of salt scarcity. Environmental concerns have also emerged. Road salt runoff damages freshwater ecosystems. Salt from industrial processes pollutes waterways. In coastal areas, salt production can damage fragile ecosystems. Yet demand continues growing. As global population increases and industrialization spreads, salt consumption rises. We're now mining and producing salt at scales that would have been incomprehensible to our ancestors. The most expensive salt today? Not the mass-produced table salt that costs pennies. It's specialty salts. Fleur de sel from France, Himalayan pink salt, Hawaiian black lava salt, Persian blue salt. These gourmet salts can cost 100 times more than regular salt, valued for their flavor nuances, colors, and textures. We've come full circle. For most of history, any salt was precious. Then salt became cheap and common. Now some salt is precious again, not because it's rare, but because it's special. From the dawn of civilization to your dinner table tonight, salt has been with us. It's preserved our food, paid our armies, funded our governments, and sparked our revolutions. Roman soldiers fought for it. Medieval merchants grew rich from it. Gandhi marched for it. You sprinkled it on your breakfast. What other substance has been simultaneously so common and so precious? What other mineral has shaped human history so profoundly? Salt built the first trade routes. It enabled the first cities. It made food preservation possible, which made civilization possible. Without salt, there are no stored foods. Without stored foods, there are no cities. Without cities, there is no civilization as we know it. The ancient Chinese were right to monopolize it. The Romans were right to pay soldiers with it. Gandhi was right to march for it. Because salt isn't just a mineral. It's not just a flavoring. It's the chemical foundation of human civilization. Every cell in your body depends on it. Your neurons fire because of it. Your heart beats because of it. You are, quite literally, made possible by salt. So the next time you reach for that salt shaker, pause for a moment. You're holding something that toppled kings, launched empires, and shaped the modern world. That white crystal on your table? It's older than humanity. It's more valuable than gold used to be. It's the reason you're alive. That's not just salt. That's history in your hands.